If you don't know by now, then you should know. Nah, I'm joking. Welcome, this is the Yapper. This is your main host, or not main host, your host that speaks more than the other host. Do me. And then I'm joined by my beautiful co-host Joanna, as usual. Joanna.
Hey everyone. Welcome to the Yapper. And just another good evening, good day in Malawi.
Today we'll be talking about like remakes. There's usually like a lot of I don't want to say a lot of, but Hollywood be going crazy with the remakes these days. It kind of feels like that's the new fashion, like, doing a remake of something that was already done. I don't know if it's because people can't come up with original ideas nowadays. I don't know. But there's been a lot of remakes just popping out. And I think what made us want to speak about this topic is Joanna recently told me about them doing a Harry Potter remake, like in terms of them doing a series of Harry Potter on HBO. And obviously HBO is renowned for making pretty dope series in general, like really taking time with the series, the realism, the acting, stuff like that, the directing, cinematics, even money sometimes that they would spend on their shows is just kind of different. That's why maybe they don't have as many shows as other, I guess, I don't know if I should say broadcasters or what I should call them now, since they offer streaming as well. So I don't know what you call that. I don't know if I should say streaming service and TV channel or whatever, but you know what HBO is. But point is, with shows like Game of Thrones, I want to say Boardwalk Empire, I think was an HBO show. Let me think. HBO. Oh man, I'm thinking, forgetting another good one from HBO. But anyway, point is, HBO is known for having really good shows. So I mean, obviously they also do the whole basketball, as well, streaming as well sometimes. Anyway, just with a lot of remakes and stuff, it just sounded like an interesting topic, just kind of to dive into and just kind of to unpack and discuss. So but before we get into that, we wanted to. I'm losing my thingy. Oh, okay, fine. Basically, start by making a Netflix recommendation. So I'm going to give the pressure to Joanna. You need to make a Netflix recommendation for the episode. What would you recommend that people watch?
I'm on the spot, but
Think about it, there's no pressure.
Yeah. Let me think. Okay, I'm gonna go towards K-drama. If you like K-drama or Korean shows, movies.
Is it that book?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would recommend Kingdom. If you like zombies, if you like fantasy, if you like period drama, K-drama, I would recommend Kingdom. Yeah, it's got enough gore, but not like wild. And it's a good zombie series. Yeah.
Interesting. Never heard of that. Not sure I'm gonna watch that one, but K-drama people, that's an option for you. For me personally, what can I suggest from Netflix? I think I'd have to open up my Netflix quickly. Let's see. Just see from what I've recently been watching. How slow is this internet? Okay, no, it's not that slow. Okay, it's not recognizing that I'm typing, and there we go. What the hell? Oh, now it's playing the sound from a movie. Jeez, I was not expecting that. Okay, there we go. Stopped. Jeez, I was playing the sound from the movie. Anyway, okay, there it goes again. I hope that's not coming through on the, I don't want it to be DSP'd or whatever they call it. Like you're playing some copyright. Wait, there we go. I can mute that. There we go. There was a recent movie that I watched that was pretty decent. Not recent movie, sorry. I mean recent series. Let's see. maybe something that I'm already watching. Let's see. Let me go through that. Doesn't seem like a lot of options. I'm not watching a lot of stuff. What's this thing say? I feel like this thing's lying. Okay, I'm just gonna, I don't know, recommend something really quick, which I don't think, let me see. Yeah, I don't think people would have been watching. I don't think, we talked about Alice in Borderlands. We haven't really done any podcast episode about Alice in Borderlands, right? Yeah, so I think I would recommend that, though you might have already watched it if you're already watching like Asian stuff on Netflix. It might have popped up, but Alice in Borderlands is a really dope anime-esque like live action series, Japanese, of course. Yeah, it's just great storyline, good acting, music, cinematics, everything. I think it was just dope. It's funny as well. You don't have to be an English speaker to enjoy it, but it also depends on, the type of stuff you like watching. Some people don't like watching stuff that's in another language. They prefer to watch things dubbed. For me, it really depends. Like, for example, like just a typical one, Dragon Ball Z. I think because I watched it growing up as a kid in English, it's something which I struggled to watch in Japanese when I started watching anime and started watching stuff in Japanese. It's easier for me to watch stuff in Japanese that I already started in Japanese because it's like you're kind of familiar with that. So that's just my personal preference for like Dragon Ball Z. So I think that's why I would say it depends. But otherwise, in general, I prefer, like, if something is made in Japanese, it's better to watch it in Japanese. Something's made in Portuguese, better to watch it in Portuguese. Something made in Korean, better to watch it in Korean. And, just read the subtitles. After all, nowadays, a lot of us are used to reading subtitles anyway. So you can just read the subtitles or the translation, whatever they call it. But yeah, we're used to doing that anyway. I think for a lot of us, I think quite a few people do that just because a lot of these people be whispering the movies and not really saying anything clearly or mumbling like I'm doing right now. No, I'm joking, but yeah. So I think it's just, I think that's whatever. Point is, Alice in Borderlands, really good option. Definitely check that out. I think there's 2 seasons. It's a good watch. I think each season has like 10 episodes or something. Really dope, especially if you also like something like Squid Game. Yeah, I think that'll be something dope to watch. Yeah. Otherwise, any interesting news that you've heard of, Joanna, or any interesting stories or anything?
No, not really, actually. I haven't.
Nothing about the King's coronation?
Nah, I mean, I've seen snippets in the headlines, like it was awkward for Harry. Just the way he was walking into the church, and people were saying that he wasn't singing the new anthem when his dad, the king, was walking out the chapel. But yeah, I haven't really been following up on that. I guess there was a new thing that King Charles invited many, I think all the royal families, couples that are out there, that he invited them, from Japan, the royal families in Europe. But, yeah.
Apparently Louis was yawning a lot, so you must find it boring, apparently.
I can imagine.
The London rain. What else? 6 more minutes to go. Oh, they arrived 6 minutes ahead of schedule. Damn. Anyway, I was just checking out any interesting news. But yeah, that's whatever. Anyway, I'll just keep it moving. So just to get into this remake thing, I'll start by talking about the Harry Potter thing. Or I think I've already spoken about the fact that Hollywood are doing remakes and that's kind of a thing for them and blah, 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 blah. And obviously remaking is not a new thing now. It's not like the first time remakes have ever been made. I mean, how can I put it? Okay, I'm just looking here, like, for example, at a list. And yeah, like, obviously, for example, I think this is, what do you call it? Planet of the Apes. I think the ones that are coming out now are remakes of ones that were made before. Might be wrong about that. I Am Legend, it looks like is based off like a book. No, that's not a remake. What am I looking at? Well, what's this list saying? Remakes better than the original. That's why it's considering them. No, that's not what I mean. Yeah, like Born Identity. It looks like there was another one made in the 1980s, for example. You know, I'm sure a lot of us would think that the ones that came out with Matt Damon, the ones we know from our era, were one of the best, or some of the best. Well, yeah, I mean, might be, but we might think it's better. You know, so it doesn't, like I said, apply to everything. Yeah, these ones that's not what I'm looking for. Okay, Batman. There's been many superhero movies, especially get remade, especially before these multiverse things became a thing. Cinematic universes being multiverses or whatever became, you know, a thing. It used to be, for example, I'm just saying, like, you know, they had the whole Spider-Man thing that was made with Tobey Maguire. He made 3 movies, and then after a couple of years, different generation, they did it again with that Andy, what's his name? Garfield or something like that. Andrew Garfield. And then after him, now they're doing it with, I think, Tom Holland.
Yeah.
Tom Holland. I think I think he's done now, I think. I don't think he's doing any more movies for Spider-Man. Maybe in the Marvel universe, but I don't think he's doing any for, like, the Spider-Man's, you know, solo movies, or maybe he's doing one more, who knows. Point is, you know, they that's the thing, like, they've obviously been remaking Spider-Man for years. Superman, great example, since 70s, 80s, been remaking it. Batman again. So that's not to say that remakes are a new thing necessarily, but I feel like it's been more of an influx of late in the last couple of years, where it's like remaking old stuff is kind of the go-to, because, you know, it might be that maybe we feel that content is easy to consume nowadays. You know what I mean? If you think of back then, an artist releases an album, and for them to be able to, like, get that album out to the public, it's a process. It's a reason why it takes a year. You know, compared to now, where literally an artist can record high quality music in virtually their bedroom, and they can have their mix engineer spend the night and mix it overnight, and they can upload it to a DSP that evening, and he can have a song out within a couple of hours virtually. You know what I mean? That's not something that was possible back then. So because of that, obviously there's an influx of content. So we might feel like, because there's an influx of content, we also consume a lot of content. So it might be like, you know, maybe Hollywood is under pressure to put stuff out to us because we're consuming a lot and we're demanding more. And it's like, oh, we don't have enough stuff, movies or ideas coming out to match, you know, the amount of demand that people want, or the amount of content people want. At the same time, it feels like there's also a lot of content, which is a lot of nonsense. So it's kind of, you know, but yeah, what I wanted to say is, yeah, you know, it feels like there's a lot of influx of remakes. There's maybe just because of the way they're coming out, because there's the whole Peter Pan coming out. I think there's The Little Mermaid. I don't know if that's out or just came out a year ago or whatever. I
think it's coming out this week.
Okay, it's coming out soon. There's Peter Pan already mentioned. There's this Harry Potter thing planned. There's what else am I thinking of? They're currently doing, like, Lord of the Rings series. By the way, that's a great series, I think, personally. But anyway, they're doing the Lord of the Rings series on Amazon Prime, as an example. What else can I think of? Yeah, there was The Lion King a couple of years ago. People know about that. Yeah, so obviously just quite a huge influx of, you know, remakes. And my personal opinion is I'm on the fence, to be honest, because I think it's all well and good to make a remake, especially if, you know, the time frame has passed long enough that the generation can kind of be like, oh, I watched this when I was 5 or 6 years old. You know, they would really obviously want to see it again as remade, like in the modern era. But they would still want it to be familiar, right? At the same time, they might also want to show it to their children, or, you know, I mean, it's not only about those people who've watched it before showing it to their children, but it's also about the new generation seeing a movie which was very special to a previous generation, you know. But yeah, like, if I can use The Lion King as an example, sometimes that can end up being a butchering process, you know. I mean, yeah, maybe you can jump in here for a bit before I ramble on.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm also on the fence in terms of, especially now, some of the remakes, it feels like We're doing a remake just for the sake of remake, especially Disney. It's like they're remaking everything. And for some of the movies, I get it. For example, Snow White. It was the first animated movie that came out in the late 30s. So yeah, I can get why they would want to remake it now. But others, like The Lion King, classic, and I think they should have kept it that way because one, animation for animals works a lot better than CGI. And the draw for that movie, I think for most people, was the soundtracks and that Beyonce was in it, but the execution not as good as the animation. That's my take on that.
Yeah, no, I really agree. I mean, I think they had like great people involved, but I think the final product just ended up being really bad. And I think, I agree with you that for me personally, especially as a huge fan of animation myself, like I'm an adult, but I'm someone who, believes in adult cartoons, for example. I remember I think we were watching some YouTube video, which was, no, I don't know if I was watching with you. It was just, it was kind of explaining about adult cartoons and, how they became a thing and why they are a thing. And it's that thing of, obviously as adults, we deal with a lot. So we definitely want to dive into the world of comedy, you know what I mean? And comedy doesn't always have to be live action just because we're adults. It can still be in the form of, animation. And animation can still be great for adults because, it depends on the acting, like the voice actors, what they're talking about, the themes, the ideas that they're kind of exploring. But apart from that, it's also the fact that with animation, the thing that makes animation brilliant for me, like why I love animation in general, just as a person, is the fact that it gives you freedom, to like express yourself without limitations. Like, you know what I mean? I don't know how to express it. I don't know how to put it to give a good example. It's like things in life which are definitely there and definitely exist can be overemphasized and they can be overemphasized in a cartoon in a way that can like either bring more attention to it or, provoke thought about it. You know what I mean? Just because of like the fact that, like I said, they have that lack of limitation in terms of what they can do, how they can draw people. You know what I mean? For example, like if someone in real life, I'm not trying to make fun of how people look. I'm just trying to make, state facts. But how I'll use me as an example. I have a big head, for example. So, or let's say I have big ears. Like one of the features about my head that I can pick out that's pretty particular, I think, that people would say, maybe because my head's big, my ears don't seem as big. I don't know, but I have big ears, right? So if someone was to cartoonize me, then they would essentially draw me with, as someone with, a fat guy with the big head and big ears, you know what I mean? And they could overemphasize my big ears by making them extremely big to say, Dumi has big ears. Something like that. Just like if someone has a gap tooth, in a cartoon, they might make that gap super wide. And I'm not saying all cartoons are like that. Obviously, you have animes, which is different types of animation and stuff like that. But my point is it just limits the creativity of it doesn't limit the creativity of the creators, because obviously in movies, you have to there's some stuff which you might want to do and express and show that you can't actually do and express and show. You have to do it in another way. For example, when people smash on series or on movies or whatever, they don't actually smash on series or movies or whatever. So, you know what I mean? While, for example, in a cartoon, they can actually draw them smashing. It's not like they have to draw them and speak to them behind the scenes and say, there's going to be this scene and blah, blah, blah. So I'm just giving an example. Sorry if it's a bit extreme or makes you uncomfortable, but I'm just trying to give an example to emphasize my point, to say that there's limitations in normal movies which don't apply to, series. You can have a series, you can have a guy, you can have time be something which is not really a concept in a cartoon. While in a series, in real life, obviously time is a concept. Like the actor is going to age, whether you like it or not. So you have to either change him or whatever. A good example of that is Thingy. I can use, there's so many cartoons I can use an example, but let's say like Family Guy. What year can you say from season 1 to season 10 they're in? Has 10 years passed? Is it just a year that has passed? You know what I mean? We don't see Yui, not Yui, sorry. I'm saying Yui, I'm thinking of, what do you call, Boondocks. But we don't see, is that his name? What's the kid's name? Not Stevie, Stewie. We don't see Stewie grow up. Stewie's always a kid throughout. We don't see Brian age and pass away. I'm not saying I want him to, but he's always, you know what I mean? Meg is always in high school. So is it Brian Jr.? I forgot what the kid's name is, but he's the boy's name is. But they're always in high school. If anything, they might show them going to university for like an episode as a theme for that episode, and then there's 2 episodes later they're in high school again. So my point is that the concept of time doesn't apply. They can be the same age and they can literally start like The Simpsons, for example. They can literally have The Simpsons for my parents and have The Simpsons for me and have The Simpsons for my kids, and it's the exact same characters. No change in terms of time. They could even say it's 2050. That's fine. But Homer Simpson is still the same 40-year-old aged man in 2050. So anyway, I've overexpressed that, but I just wanted to point that out about cartoons and stuff. I don't know what made me ramble on about cartoons actually. But yeah, animation. So yeah, it was really annoying. So that this is basically I just want to express my bad point. So going back now, the bad point of the things like The Lion King, like they really messed up because they thought that it would be better because, we can easily do CGI now compared to back then when it was such a mission that let's make it CGI. And that was a dumb decision because there's nothing wrong with doing animation, like cartoon style animation, even in this day and age. High quality, good quality animation. I mean, we recently watched Sinbad, and now you've watched it before. It was my first time watching it. Obviously, I knew about it when it came out, but I just had never watched it for some reason. So I watched it with Joanna. I was like, I didn't realize Brad Pitt was acting as the guy in it. So my point is, you can get someone as big of an actor, an A-list actor like Brad Pitt, to act as a cartoon guy, and this is just as entertaining. It's just as funny. I enjoyed watching it. There's still adult themes in it. You know what I mean? If they wanted to make it only for adults, they could have said it's R18, and then obviously maybe there'll be swords and whatever. So my point is that they could have done that with The Lion King, kept it cartoon, high quality drawings, different style drawing if you want, or just use the same style but upgrade it, and then use the different new voice actors. That's fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But no, instead they decided to kind of say we're going to go live action. And then because they said we're going to go live action, it's kind of like, well, in real life, lions don't talk. Again, a limitation which doesn't exist in cartoons. So now it's like, well, we're just going to make them open their mouths and look like they're gawking at each other and that they're actually having conversations, or their mouths are going to be closed, but they're having conversations with each other. And it was just so awkward to watch because that's not how we experience life. So, you know what I mean? That's the only reason you should go to live action, because you're able to portray something in real life in a way that's better than cartoons. Otherwise, just leave it in cartoon form. So anyway, but going back, before I let Joanna ramble on, she probably won't ramble, but yeah. Like Harry Potter, for example, I was saying to Joanna when she told me, I was like, well, I trust HBO, so I hope it'll be good because of that. I'm a huge fan of Harry Potter. And the other thing is, I did mention to her that as someone who read the books growing up, the movies, especially the earlier ones, I think did enough to kind of capture enough from the first books, maybe because there wasn't too much going on. But later on, especially after the 4th and 5th books, the storyline of Harry Potter, I think, I'm not going to say it's lost on everyone, but I kind of get that feeling that only those who've actually read the book, or at least have gone through the lore, know how deep that Harry Potter story is and how poorly the movies, especially the last 3 or 4, did in terms of expressing how deep that, everything was in terms of how J.K. Rowling set everything up. Like, for example, the 6th book, which I think is the Half-Blood Prince, about the whole Harry finding out about Horcruxes, and spoiler alert if you haven't read Harry Potter or haven't watched them and plan to do it now, I'm sorry. There's Horcruxes in book 6 or movie 6. But yeah, Horcruxes basically, once that pops up, that's such a game changer in terms of explaining everything else that has been pretty much the groundwork for 5 books prior. And we're talking about a 7-book series. So the 6th book kind of is when she throws in a huge plot twist that's kind of oh, so that's why this guy's been alive all this time and has managed to survive, and why he didn't die when the spell backfired with Harry and blah, blah. It explains everything. You know what I mean? And in the movie, they kind of show that it explains things, but they literally show 2 flashbacks that they did with Dumbledore, 3 of them. And in the book, they did at least 12, 13, maybe, I think, flashbacks. I might be over exaggerating, but my point is they did quite a few. Some of them were really just laying the groundwork for Harry to understand the other flashbacks that he was going to enter, because Dumbledore wanted him to understand the type of person that Voldemort was how he thinks, how he, you know what I mean? He wanted him to get that, because he knew that it wasn't as simple as, oh, let me just show him these 3 or 4 and he's going to be like, oh yeah, this guy's evil, he has 7 whatever. No, he wanted to understand, why did he make 7? Why did he go through this process? Why was he so broken as a person? Why was he, you know what I mean, the way he was, and all this stuff? It wasn't just, you know what I mean? Where was he? Because obviously, remember, after that, they had to go on a goose chase to find them. He also needed to understand. So for Harry to know where Voldemort would hide these things, he needed to understand Voldemort. You know what I mean? And that's what Book 6 was about. And I feel like the movies did a really bad job of expressing that fully, in my opinion, as a fan. Maybe I'm just saying it because I read the book and I'm kind of like, oh, they missed that out. They missed this out. They missed that out. It's possible. But, you know. Anyway, so I'm kind of excited for the remake just to see what they do with it. But I do also understand and appreciate the fact that it could completely butcher the series. You know what I mean? But yeah, so you can now say what you think about remakes. That's just my example using the Harry Potter.
In terms of remakes, just going back to the Lion King example, it wasn't just the animation that threw it for me. It was also the characters. My favorite characters in the Lion King movie, because of the humor, are the hyenas and Scar. And to really understand some of the characters, they left important conversations out. And for example, when Scar sings Be Prepared in the animation, it talks about his whole entire plan, how he's going to rule the lions. And yeah, for everyone to be prepared and to be on his side, basically. And in the movie, in the live action, they pretty much cut the whole song out. He just kind of repeated some of the words of the lyrics, and maybe also because the actor couldn't sing. They just left that song out, which for me personally is really important, the thinking of the villain and his followers. So it's when you're going to cut important stuff out, I guess, especially nowadays with racism and having equality in movies, I get that and I'm fully on board with that. But there are scenes that are cut out, which is vital to the way a villain thinks or the hero thinks, that tie the movie together and make it make sense. And when you leave that out, it just becomes a movie for the sake of redoing a movie because you can. Yeah, so that's why I'm on the fence. I think there needs to be a lot more thought into how we can do scenes better. And then, is it really necessary to do a remake now? Maybe, in the future. Or does it have to be live action? And sometimes remakes, when it's a movie, when it actually should be a series, for example, to drag it out so you are able to explain everything. Yeah, that's my opinion.
I think we were speaking about the Peter Pan movie that's coming out, and there's this whole thing about what is it?
The Lost Boys.
Yeah, the Lost Boys, and that there's girls in the Lost Boys, and they did it because they wanted to kind of be inclusive, and it's kind of that thing of okay, I get that we're in woke culture, but yeah, I don't know. You're taking something which is already made. So why, they're called the Lost Boys for a reason, because it was a group of boys. So at least if you're going to change that, then call it the Lost Group. and then say we changed it because we wanted to be inclusive, fine. But then don't take the story that some of us know with the boys and then change it and say, nah, there's girls in the group because we're inclusive, but it's still called the boys because, I guess that, girls can be boys, boys can be girls, and, LGBT and all that. So, but yeah, like, I think, some of these things can really interfere with, taking something, like I said, because I think remakes at the end of the day are supposed to be true to, I guess it depends how you look at it, because obviously the remake can also be something completely different. But for me personally, it's supposed to be true to the original, that it kind of pays homage to what the original artist did with the original movie, not butchers it in a way that kind of, I don't know. It's like if you take the Avengers and then someone makes a remake like a couple of years later and makes like a very terrible version of it. It's going to be kind of like, you know what I mean? You kind of butchered the legacy that we knew of the Avengers movies type of thing, which I don't know if that's possible. I'm just giving a stupid example, I guess. It can happen with anything. I mean, it's like with Top Gun. I think I haven't watched it, but I know there's the Top Gun remakes. You know what I mean? There's, oh man, I'm forgetting so many. There's quite a few. Like, I think, How I Met Your Mother, there's a remake of that. I know there's remakes where they kind of like bring the person back, but now they're like an adult, but in the same thing. I don't know. There's just so many of these, things that pop up. Sometimes it's also like sometimes they can't let things go. Maybe, you never know. Like, for example, I remember with the El Camino story that happened for Breaking Bad, where it's kind of like they were continuing and they did it kind of like as a movie. And it was kind of like, well, I thought it was fine just leaving the story alone, how it ended, because Breaking Bad was a classic. Not that the movie was bad, but it was kind of just like, it's kind of why I also never watched Better Call Saul, because I know it was like a spin-off from, Breaking Bad, and it was supposed to be like before, I think, or maybe the first season only, but before kind of you met those guys, and it's kind of like, I get that, but it's kind of like, well, I've watched Breaking Bad, you know what I mean? And that's fine. I'm happy to leave it there. People have told me Better Call Saul is better, and I'm like, I can appreciate that, but it's like, I don't want to watch something that's a spin-off of something that's already a classic, and you know what I mean? Like, yeah, I don't know. It's like not have those characters that made the other story a classic. Yeah, I don't know. It's almost kind of like how, for example, with, like, I like how they did it with Game of Thrones, because they took it so far back that the distance between the characters we know and the ones they're showing now is so different that there's not that relationship that we can really make to be like, oh, that's Daenerys' dad. Oh, that's Jon's dad, mom, whatever. You know what I mean? Because I feel like that's something where it's very easy now to butcher the story that we know because it's too close to home. So, yeah, it's one of those things. But anyway.
I wanted to add something on
to that. Yeah.
About butchering the story, just going back to the whole Peter Pan thing. Yes, I think the animation could have been done better. I think it was also done in the 30s or 40s. So there's a lot of racism in there, and they can remake it to do a better job at it. But Peter Pan is actually a really, really, really dark story. And the reason why it's called The Lost Boys, if you didn't know, is because during that time period, boys would hop out their buggies, their prams. And if they weren't claimed, or if the nanny couldn't find the kids, these boys would be lost. And the reason why, and it also mentions it in the animation, Peter Pan says boys aren't smart as girls. They won't hop out of their prams. So there's that kind of thing where it's kind of important. But also in general, the story of Peter Pan is a really, really dark story. And I think if you're doing homage to the book, that, some stories just don't need to be put into a movie, or especially in this case for kids, because it is a really, really, really dark story as to why Peter Pan hasn't grown up. Another thing with Little Mermaid, for example, that's coming out, spoiler alert, for those who are planning to watch, They change the song where Ursula sings to Ariel before she gets her legs and swims up shore. They change the lyrics to be woke, that women have a voice. Women want to be, people want to hear what women have to say. And where that is very true, the reason why Ursula is also using those lyrics are to manipulate Ariel, to give her voice, because she'll feel that, I don't need to say much on land. And that takes away from the story. Ursula is evil. She's trying to manipulate her so that she gives up her voice just like that. And sometimes, being woke is good and changing and doing things better. But where it's like important, I think that's also a conversation that you can have with your kids. You can sit them down and explain why that is an evil thing to do, or to manipulate, or that people shouldn't think like that, for example. So I think sometimes a lot of movies, they take out things for the sake of being woke, but don't really understand, the creators don't really understand the meaning of why, for example, the Lost Boys were called the Lost Boys.
For me also, I like things that are authentic, because I appreciate woke culture, but I don't want to also be fake or lie. So, like, for example, like, I'm happy. I mean, obviously, it would have been nice to see Idris play, James Bond. I think there was talks about that, but I think he ended up saying that he would never take the role because he just doesn't see himself as James Bond. And apart from that, I think it's the thing of James Bond is known as a white, a suave, white British spy. You know what I mean? And I get that at the time, it's like maybe inclusivity wasn't a thing. But if the story started with James Bond being white and that's the story, then James Bond is white. And just we have to accept that he's a white guy. We can't be saying that we want him to be black now. It's kind of like later on, people will be trying to say that Black Panther, the character who plays Black Panther, can be white. That's what I'm trying to drive at. Like, that's how thin that line gets when you try to say that, oh, no, because, we can cross lines, we're trying to be inclusive now and blah, 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 and it can be this, blah. I get that, but also let's not, because the thing is, like, why Black Panther was so powerful at the time that it came out, and, for black people in general, was apart from the fact that it was a black superhero and we're not used to seeing black superheroes. The thing is that Black Panther was already a story that was there. It's not like the guy who made Marvel didn't already have that story, or those comics there. They were already there. So they just chose to make movies based on Black Panther. And then obviously the actor Chadwick Boseman, who they put in, was perfect for the role at the time. And everything just clicked together at a perfect time. You know what I mean? And that's why it was what it was. But my point is, look now, like if 20 years from now, Indian people, or I don't know, Asian people, or like, I don't know, Western, people are like, oh, we're not, Black Panther can also be white. He can also be Samoan. He can also be this. It's kind of, it draws a thin line of like, well, no, he's meant to be a black superhero. That's his character. So he's always going to have to be played by someone black. And that's just end of story. You know what I mean? So I think it's different when you talk about stuff like, a president, because no one writes that role that, the president has to be a white man. No, it doesn't have to be. It just has to be whoever democracy decides it is. And democracy is supposed to be all inclusive, but that's different when there's a story. Like, just imagine now they do the Harry Potter and then they put in a black Harry Potter because they want to be inclusive. Like, I'll be honest, that's going to piss me off because Harry Potter was not written as a black guy. There's black characters in the Harry Potter books already. There's that Kingsley guy who wears purple, and he even dresses African, which I love about him. Who's in the Harry Potter story? For those who, I'm sure they saw him in the things, but even in the books they describe him as being black. There's the friend, I forgot his name. Is it Dean? No, is it Dean? I forgot which one. Not Seamus. Seamus, I think, is the Scottish dude, the friend. But then there's that one. Is it Dean Thomas? Yeah, I think Dean Thomas, for example, he's mentioned as being black in the books. You know what I mean? Parvati, who I think Harry goes to the ball with, she's mentioned as being Middle Eastern. You know what I mean? And those are their characters. They can't now say that, oh, because we're being inclusive, we can make them whatever race they are. So it's those kind of things. Or say like, oh, okay, fine. Harry Potter was always paid by a male, but we're going to make it like a female to be inclusive. Hey, man, I feel like there's other ways to do this or to do that, to be inclusive, than to take like stories or that already exist and then say, because we're in a period where we're trying to be more inclusive, we should include, you know what I mean, by changing this or doing this on purpose, just to, you know what I mean? If there's not enough extras who are black, then add more extras who are black. But I'm not saying now that you should now change the whole cast, like, oh, you know, like I've seen some, like I know, like Bridgerton, for example, which I get it because I guess it's supposed to be fantasy, so it's fine. But it's that thing of like Bridgerton trying to portray like that there were a lot of old noble black people, and it's kind of like, well, there were not that many noble black people at the time, and that's inaccurate. You know, I get that we're trying to, you know, we want our people to feel like, oh, we need to be proud of being black, but there's ways of doing that. You know what I mean? Django, I love Django Unchained. That makes me proud to be black, watching a movie like Django Unchained. And in the movie, he's a slave, but he gains his freedom. So that's why I can relate to the movie, and I feel proud to be black watching it because of how he gains his freedom, how he expresses his blackness when he gains his freedom still. You know what I mean? How he doesn't even forget where he came from. So it's those things. You can do that and still make people feel like, oh yeah, like I said, Black Panther. I love the way Black Panther's done. The way they were like, oh, you colonizers, you know what I mean? And I know that word obviously makes white people feel a bit awkward hearing it when you say it to them because it sounds offensive. Well, that's exactly how the word nigger sounds to us. So, you know what I mean? It's beautiful, like, to do it that way. Not, like I said, changing it now, like, oh, let's make Superman black. You know what I mean? Because it wouldn't have had the same effect. Like, oh, Superman's black now, we feel included. Nah. It makes more sense that we have a black superhero who are like, oh yeah, he's black, he's African, he has his African roots. They tell us that Africans secretly have more science than white people think we have, which is not very different from the story of the fact that people think Africa's less developed than it actually is. People think we roam around with lions. And Wakanda's like, yeah, we let them think that, but we're actually more technologically advanced. I love that. So anyway, that's what I have to say about, I guess, remakes and throwing in, you know, these woke stuff and all that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like what I was saying earlier. Just have conversation with your kids. Because if you're just throwing in black people, Asian people, people of color in for the sake of inclusivity, it also, diminishes the story of actually how time periods looked like. There was racism, slavery. Just talk to your kids about it. And then another point that I also wanted to make on that, Disney, if you're listening, we have so many fantasy stories, lore and folklore that we haven't even touched yet.
Yep.
I mean, we are doing Disney stories based off a lot of books by the Brother Grimms and Hans Andersen. But why don't we just take folklore stories from Native Americans or Africans or Asians and do a new story, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to be inclusive.
Exactly.
Like, I like how they did for Marvel, Shang-Chi, right? Shang-Chi, yeah. Anyway, yeah, I like how they did that because it's like, again, he's meant to be, you know, Asian, then that's how it works, you know? So yeah, some of these things are important, but anyway, we're also, you know, I don't want to discount the fact, I don't want to make it seem like we have to be, you know, proud of who we are without also being, you know, what's the word, living together, because obviously that's, you know, very important as well. And I don't want to discount that as well. I think it's important to kind of recognize our collective, our differences collectively and appreciate them, to be like, oh, like, for example, I'm an African man, but I love Asian food, you know what I mean? And that's me appreciating that Asians make really nice food, their way they flavor their food and season their food and their creativity in the style of food and whatever is just their style. I like anime, which is also something that's a product of Asia, you know, which I'm a fan of. So that's how I can appreciate them without me having to appropriate being Asian, for example. I can consume their content without being like, oh, let me cut my hair like they would do and dress exactly how they would do and whatever. And, at the same time, like I said, those lines are also very, especially as the world goes now. I mean, I'm pretty sure 100 years from now, you know what I mean? There will probably be more mixed people on Earth than there will be like different races. I think maybe 100 years is too close, but like 200, 300 years, there'll be more mixed people on Earth than there will be like white or black or any other race, because there's just so much mixing going on. Like, it's just hard to know. You meet someone and they'll tell you like, oh yeah, I'm this, but I'm an eighth this, I'm a ninth that. You know what I mean? There's just going to be so much mixing and intermingling that, yeah, there will be, of course, a person who's Asian but has black heritage. So, you know what I mean? Those things are obviously going to be, but it's important to appreciate our collective differences of what makes us different, because I think that's, one of the things that's really unique about human beings. Yeah, I don't know if a snake that is in China and a snake that is in Malawi and both are the same species, I don't know if they are different in terms of their culture, or if they have the exact same culture and mentality and way of thinking, So that's one thing that's beautiful that God made about human beings. But yeah, at the same time, just learn to love each other. Yeah. And that's our piece.
Yeah. Yes, yeah. We are Audi. And yeah. Let us know what remakes you want to watch.
And also, what are you watching on Netflix? Over and out.